Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final special session for the Within Reach No Poverty conference that we are concluding this week. And we have as our closing keynote, Dr. Kiruba Krishnaswamy, who's actually, as you know, is a change in the program from Dr. Patrick Webb, who for unforeseen circumstances could not be with us, but we have a very able person that we're very proud of serving as our closing keynote to a conference that she has helped champion the concept here at the University of Missouri. Dr. Kiruba Krishnaswamy is a graduate of Tamil Nadu Agricultural University in India and has worked collaboratively in her days as an undergraduate with Canadian International Development Agency and McGill University, working on projects supported by the Canadian International Development Agency and the Gates Foundation. She was instrumental in developing macronutrient fortified salt technologies, which resulted in 3 pilot-scale production systems reaching 60 million people in India. So she's aware of how you use science to make big impact. When I think of nanoscience or micronutrients and nutrition, we think of Kiruba Krishnaswamy. She's now an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical, Biological, and Chemical Engineering here at the University of Missouri with a joint appointment in food science. She's also developed an honors course that highlights the emphasis of the Deaton Scholars Program and the Deaton Institute on zero hunger and poverty. She's continuing her rich research background, and we're very happy that she has embraced the student efforts to compete in the grand challenges around the world, and she's done that with luster and with students placing very well. So she's a multiple threat in her science, her research, and her teaching. Kiruba, we're particularly delighted to have you with us as the closing keynote for our conference this week. So I turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton, for this kind introduction. And it's an honor to be part of the Deaton Institute. And I'm so humbled to present the research that I would like to share and my journey. So today's title that I'm going to talk about is Food and Nutrition Innovation to break the cycle of poverty. So here, this is an overview of where we are on this planet Earth. We as human beings are very, very small in the scale of this Earth. And in the 1950s, we were around 2.5 billion people on this planet. And then now we are in 2020, we are around 7.5 billion people. And this is set to grow by 2050. So the big question here is, how do we feed this 9 billion people sustainably with healthy food? And if we want to feed the people with healthy food, poverty and hunger, they go hand in hand. If we cannot address the challenges of poverty, then we cannot address the challenges of hunger. Because that's why I'm putting this question, because it aligns with both zero hunger and no poverty. And with that big question to the audience, to the students in the audience group, because your future, right? Our future, the future of our children and our grandchildren, that's where they are going to be. And how are we going to make sure that there is no poverty and no hunger during those periods of time? So with that, why I'm interested in this research or in this area of food and nutrition security is because when we started the 21st century, we saw a lot of innovations, but also we saw a lot of challenges like climate crisis, from earthquakes to floods to drought and floods and so on. So whenever there is a natural calamity, it affects the most vulnerable people. And now we are in a global pandemic, right? And what it has done is it has clearly exposed the social disparities in the world. Irrespective of developed or developing countries, around 80% of people living in the rural areas, including fishermen, indigenous communities, and around 20% living in urban areas like the food deserts or the slums. So they are affected by food insecurity, poverty, hunger, and so on. And these numbers are going to increase because the COVID has dramatically raised the numbers of hungry people. And whenever we talk about hunger, we always think about chronic hunger. This affects more than 821 million people on this planet. And this number is quite conservative because the data is from 2018, and the numbers are going to raise because of the COVID and the impact that has created on this planet Earth. To roughly put 821 million is 1 in 9% is affected by chronic hunger. But today I'm here to talk about something much more dangerous that we don't talk. That's called the hidden hunger. This affects more than 2 billion people on this planet, irrespective of developed or developing country. Most of the people are affected by hidden hunger that is due to micronutrient deficiencies like iron, zinc, vitamins, and minerals. And around 7 million children before they reach their 5th birthday die annually due to micronutrient or malnutrition problems. So we say children are our future, but we leave around 7.7 million children every year. And unfortunately, this number is also going to raise because of the ongoing conflict, the pandemic, and the climate crisis. So this is a burning question that has always challenged me. So the whole idea of my research program, and I have got this opportunity to lead a research program. So the big question that I was asking from the start, how do we feed the people with healthy food, to how do you address hidden hunger challenges? So on one hand, we have around 2 billion people affected by hidden hunger. And whenever we talk about hidden hunger, we always think about wasting and stunting. But overweight and obesity also falls under the same umbrella. And this is what we call the double burden of malnutrition. And recent studies have clearly shown that micronutrient deficiencies play a key role in contributing to the double burden of malnutrition. And whenever we talk about this, this predominantly happens in communities that are, that has high levels of poverty, right? Because for example, in a food desert, right, they might not have access to nutritious food. So they might be consuming food that are less nutritious, and that could lead to overweight and obesity problems in those areas. And so there is a strong connection between food and poverty, food and nutrition. So how we are trying to address is, if we are able to give people nutritious food, we could solve that problem. But that's one approach, but I'll talk about other approaches as well. So on one hand, we have hidden hunger. On the other hand, we waste around 1.3 billion tons of edible food. Like annually, we waste around 1.3 billion tons. So in nature, there is nothing called waste, right? So what we can learn from nature is the power of transformation. If we can understand how it's been transformed from one form to another, then we will not be calling this as waste, but rather raw materials for our processing. So that's what, if we are able to do a zero waste processing method, because most of the fruits and vegetables that are wasted contains high amount of vitamins and minerals. So if we are able to recover and fortify them to develop ready to eat foods, so we could address this problem of hunger. So this is one approach. And I know this is a complex problem and there is no single bullet to solve this big challenge. That's why these are called grand challenges. But every single person can contribute. That's what I'm saying. Every single person, based on your knowledge, your disciplinary background, can contribute in one way or the other, because we all eat, right? So how we are contributing in our research area, in the research lab, is we call our lab is the FEAST lab, Food Engineering and Sustainable Technologies. 3 areas of research is, one is sustainable food systems engineering, where we do a lot of upcycling of food waste and food loss. then preventing of post-harvest fruits, preservation of fruits, nuts, and mostly indigenous plants because of the high micronutrient content. So once we recover them, then we fortify them to develop ready-to-eat therapeutic food to address the problems of hidden hunger, fortifying foods with micronutrients. But when we do these fortification, an important aspect is you don't want chemicals to be interacting with each other, because the nutrition content can decrease over a period of time. So what we do is we do innovative technologies, develop encapsulation methods. So we protect these interactions. So the nutritious product is kept intact. So we do oral-based delivery systems. So these are the three areas of research, and it aligns with the Zero Hunger Challenge of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And the interested population groups are women and children, and in rural, urban, and tribal communities. So this is the overall contribution that we do towards addressing these challenges. And as I said, zero hunger and poverty are are interconnected. And I'm going to give you some examples how food and nutrition innovation can end the cycles of poverty. Right? So first example is food loss. How can we prevent? Because food loss, there are two different ways of looking into food systems, because food systems are quite complex. And when we think about food loss and food waste, food loss happens in the field, in during production and during transportation and coming to processing. So that area is called the food loss phase. And then from processing, after processing, like in the retail, during transportation and at your home, that's all comes under the food waste category. So what happens is around majority of the people living in the farm are unfortunately undernourished, as well as they are also affected by poverty. So how can we prevent this food loss from happening in the farms to support farming communities, and also help them to get some value addition to their products so they can get some income to improve their livelihoods? So that was one question. So this is one example, upcycling of food loss, that is value addition to indigenous crops to recover micronutrients. So here what we did is we took ancient underutilized grains like amaranth, banyan millet, finger millet, kuro, porso, and so on. And most of these millets are predominantly grown in Asia and Africa. And apparently they used to grow in parts of the United States as well. Like tribal communities, like the Osage nations, they used to grow some of these porso millets in the Midwest regions. Currently, they are used as feed, livestock feed and bird feed in the US, but they do have high nutrition content, so they could be consumed as food as well. The reason why is they are drought tolerant, they are highly climate resilient, they have health promoting properties like phytochemicals, and they are considered as functional food, and they are gluten free, they are high in proteins, fibers, vitamins, and minerals. So currently this is going as waste. So what we did is we wanted to improve the value, to create awareness. We want to study what happens to these millets. So if we see a global production rate in the 60s, this is the yield in millions, but that has gone down, significantly down over a period of time. And because we started growing more staples or giving more attention to staples, where these millets and these neglected crops production has gone down. And there is a renewed interest recently to revive back these ancient crops because of their nutritional value. Here you can see we've categorized them based on the grain, the geography of domestication, the year of domestication, and the major producers of these grains, and the common names that they are called, because the same grain can be called like Amaranto in Spanish, it could be called something in Tamil, in Hindi. So but they are being consumed by indigenous groups for like thousands of years, right? So, and they are also climate resilient. So just doing the study gave us some insights how such nutritious foods can improve the health of people. And also they are grown in areas where there is high levels of poverty, right? When you have high levels of poverty, when you're it's easy to grow these crops because of their drought resilient, and they have less water requirement that could satisfy their nutritional needs as well. So that's the connection between food and how to reduce the poverty cycle. So doing this exercise was really, really eye-opening. As we can see, the years of domestication, they've been domesticated for human consumption like thousands of years ago, but over a period of time, we've lost these grains. And we wanted to study its nutritional content and what are the physical properties. So this is the first microscopic comparison of these millets. When you see them under the microscope, the image, they all look predominantly spherical in structure, right? There's not much significant difference when we see from a macro scale level. But when we go to a micro scale level, that's where we can start seeing those granularities. And that's the reason you can see the difference in micronutrient profile for different millets. And you can see this is amaranthus. It has a beautiful coat outside. And this is the pearl millet. You can see how smooth it is. And as you can see, these millets, like the vineyards and all, there is a rupture because they have an outer coat that needs to be removed. When you're removing it, it creates mechanical damage. And that's the reason you can see structural destructions on these surfaces. And this is finger millet, which is high in calcium. So you can see very microscopic hairs. That's why it sticks to your clothes if you walk by a farm with finger millets. So understanding it at microscopic level gave us some insights how we can fortify them or develop new products. And also we did some comparative studies on the nutrition, and we found very interesting profile. So like there are amino acids. In amino acids, there are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. So the essential amino acids, you have to get them through food, through consuming food. And what we found is when we studied all these essential amino acids, these are the profiles for rice and maize and wheat. But for other, for the millets or sorghum, you can see they have high amounts of these essential amino acids compared to the staples that we are currently using. And also they have high amounts of mineral profile. So, reviving them back literally gives value addition to the crop, value addition to the farmers, people in need, as well as it improves the nutritional profile just by consuming these neglected foods. So that was a very interesting study, and also it contributes to different parameters like zero hunger, responsible consumption and production, and climate action as well. And I would say if we are able to get this, that also could in turn increase the yield, increase the economic returns to farmers who are producing or growing these crops, simultaneously improving their livelihood and removing them from poverty. So that's one study that I wanted to share. And another study another project that I wanted to share with you is the double fortified salt, which Dr. Deaton introduced, did share a little bit insights. And I want to say how that particular innovation helped in addressing food and nutrition security. And they're also improving the poverty, like raising the people from below poverty line. So this particular project was very, I learned a lot during this project to say. So this particular image, is a child named Jyoti in a malnutrition intensive care unit in 2015. This image was taken in 2015. That is not quite so we are still seeing such images in the 21st century. And unfortunately, the conflicts and so on, there's going to be phases in this. And why we were interested in India is because India is one of the countries that was worst affected by anemia. Around 50%, 56% of women of reproductive age are anemic. And that is around 70% children are anemic. That's the highest record in the world. And that reduces India's GDP by 6%. Just iron deficiency anemia reduces the GDP of a country. So imagine how much nutrition is important to improve the GDP of a country, and to make sure that the population are nutritious and healthy, so the country can grow and have economic prosperity. So that was the reason India was selected for the study. And from a technical standpoint, I just wanted to give a brief overview. If someone is interested, I can go in deep of this. So most foods are fortified. Like we use salt, which is iodized salt, which is a fortification. How do we make iodized salt? We take iodine solution and we mix with salt to make iodized salt. So there are different processes going on here, but that's a simple skeletal diagram of how the salt that we consume every day is done. So what we were doing is we were taking iron, which does not, they are not compatible with iodine. So we had to do a microencapsulation technique, like extrusion, microencapsulation, to make an iron premix. And then when we blend them in a different ratio, we could develop this double fortified salt. So this is how ferrous fumarate will look like. And then when you extrude, it becomes like this. When you coat it, it becomes like this. And then after we do another microencapsulation step. Then when we mix it with salt, you can see salt and the premix. And in the salt, you will not be able to see the difference. It looks like salt. And from a technical standpoint, this is how during extrusion it looks like. But after coating, it becomes so smooth. That's why it prevents the interaction. Right? And when we do storage studies, we want to see if we are keeping this, for example, we're making these salts, right? And it's going to conditions like, in India or in Bangladesh or in Kenya. So we want to study, can this salt withstand the temperature, the humidity conditions in these geographical locations? So we do a storage study, mimicking the geographical conditions, the temperature, the humidity of that particular location. So, and the salts, we develop different formulations and we select the best formulation that can survive, that can withstand all these harsh treatments that we try to mimic what happens in the field. And based on that, the salts performed really well. And then this was pilot planted. And so you can see this is Professor Daisheri, who's my amazing mentor, and that's me, and our team here at University of Toronto, where we developed this fortified salt. And initially it was reaching, we planned in 2017, we were planning only to reach around 24 million people in Uttar Pradesh, right? And all our funding agencies, we would like to thank them because of that, we were able to transfer this technology that was developed in the lab to reach people. So what happened, right? Now I want to emphasize the importance of transdisciplinary teams. Why we need to have people from multiple disciplines working together to solve problems, because it can really create that impact, reaching millions of people. So what happens here is we have university where we developed these technologies at Toronto, and then it was transferred to food industries in India. So through the funding with Gates Foundation, GAIN, and so on. So then we have the international NGOs were involved in supporting the project. Then we had local NGOs, the Tata Trust, they were supporting this project. And then the government of Uttar Pradesh, the state government, then the federal government, the government of India, government of Canada. So when all stakeholders come together, aligning with the public distribution system, from the university to the healthcare worker who conveys this message to the poorest of the poor person who is living in a remote district in India, could understand the value of nutrition and food and can benefit. So that was the power of transdisciplinary teams, and having a common vision, or what was the vision for all of us was working in this project was, how do you address iron deficiency anemia, especially among women and children in these remote villages in India. So that was a common driving factor. So we were able to reach with 24 million people. But currently what is happening is it's reaching around 60 million people. So one state saw the impact, right? Then the other states, okay, Andhra Pradesh wanted to have it, Madhya Pradesh. So different states started incorporating this technology into their public distribution system, like something similar to SNAP and so on. So the whole purpose was using food as a vehicle to improve the livelihood of people. So I should put zero poverty here as well, no end poverty, but so it could connect multiple SDGs throughout. As I said, the whole reason I was showing all these examples is because no poverty, zero hunger, these two go hand in hand. Like if we could address this problem, we could address this. So I see that as a solution, connecting food and hunger and poverty with others, then we could improve the health of people, and we need quality education. So all the SDGs are really interconnected. And that's why I really like the SDG number 17, which is the partnership for goals, because we will not be able to achieve any of these SDGs individually. We need partnerships. And that's what I learned from the fortification project. You have to have transdisciplinary teams to solve grand challenges. And so that's the thing. And here, what happened is COVID happened, right? And you can see the COVID pandemic has affected all SDGs, from loss of income. Let's start with no poverty, because the conference surrounds around no poverty. So loss of income leading to vulnerable segments, especially affecting the vulnerable segments of the society and their families who are living below the poverty line. So that has drastically impacted communities. And food production and distribution has been disrupted because of COVID, as well as conflicts that happens. And the health outcomes of people have decreased because of the pandemic. Education has suffered a lot. Children, this is the first time, I think so, the history, schools have been closed, and remote learning, not everyone has access to remote learning or internet facilities. So that has clearly impacted. And then from gender equality standpoint, there has been economic gains, but there also we've seen violence against women increase during these periods, and healthcare workers. So there has been a burden on the health, gender equality SDGs as well. Clean water and sanitation has also caused a very, during the supply distribution disruption, there's been challenges in this area as well. And affordability. Affordable clean energy supplies, there has been shortages, disrupted this electricity supplies and weakening the healthcare system as well as the food systems. So that is also challenged. Then there has been many, like economic activities has been suspended during the 2020 lockdowns. Less employment, unemployment has increased. So that's also a challenge out there. And populations living in slums or like in high density population areas, that has become hubs for spreading the pandemic, right? So high density population density and poor sanitation conditions, if sustainable cities and communities are not developed. And we've also seen conflicts. Currently, we see conflicts around the world that has affected, impacted lives of people. But there is only one silver lining. We did see a little bit of reduction in the emissions and environmental footprints for the climate action, but still we have a long way to go to get our climate actions and goals in place. So this is what the pandemic has really exposed in this world. But I would say is a zero hunger world or a no poverty world, because I connect them together is possible. I think that is possible because I'm an optimist, and it's possible because of, if we have transdisciplinary teams, I think so it's possible. And also if we have youth, that's why I have, and then the next thing I'm going to talk about the power of youth, which is so important. And to all the youth in this, students in this group, I really say their sustainable food and nutrition innovation to end poverty, to break that cycle of poverty, is in the hands of the youth, and empowering them is so critical if we want to break these cycles. Because it is a cyclic cycle. If you see, if there is poverty, right, then the person is not going to have enough nutrition to consume the food. And then if the person, for example, let's say a mother is not having nutritious food to consume, then the baby can become malnourished, right? And that means then if the baby is malnourished, then the kid might not have proper education or could not perform to the full potential. So then the kid goes back into the poverty cycle. And then again, that leads to poverty. So this is a cyclic cycle. And if we want to break that cycle, we need to have innovation. And innovation means not only technological innovation, but innovations in policy, innovations in supply chain. There needs to be innovation. And for that, we need transdisciplinary teams. So here, what we did is, thanks to the Deaton Institute and amazing, colleagues, we were able to develop a new online course to bring students from transdisciplinary teams to work together to solve problems of current challenges. So it's called the Zero Hunger Challenge. It's offered during the fall semester, and we try to bring students from multiple disciplines, from agriculture to journalism to engineering to public health, and they form teams and we develop solutions. Mimicking the structure, the essence of the Deaton Scholars Program, but here we go deep into different stuff, all the SDGs, and try to connect them. And why I say the power of youth is so important, because two teams from Mizzou in 2020, they won the World Food Systems competition, dashboard competition. And they were like students like you, if there are students in the group, undergraduates, like sophomores, juniors coming together. And once you're given a challenge, I'm so confident that students can take it and give a new, fresh perspective to solve that problem. And this is the class of 2020, and you can see I learn a lot from my students, and it's been a wonderful journey teaching this course. And also, I wanted to share some of the student innovations that has changed the way things are done. So here, this is Sunrise. This is also a student team that won $1 million Hulse Prize for their innovation to to develop drying of rice, and they developed a supply chain model for that. So the farmers could get benefits for their produce and also to uplift them from poverty. So it was both ending poverty, improving livelihoods, increasing economic returns, and increasing the nutritional content of the food. So creating this next generation change makers is so critical, and students play a key role. The whole thing is we need to give those platforms. So this is 2018, the Hals Prize. Generally, students go present in these competitions, and currently there are so many innovation competitions that are supporting students and entrepreneurs to come up with innovative solutions to solve to end poverty, to end hunger, and to have climate resilient solutions. So that, on that note, I would say we are the first, I would like to quote Dr. Ban Ki-moon, we are the first generation to be able to end poverty. There are solutions, and it's possible if we have transdisciplinary teams, we have youth involvement, and we may be the last generation that can take steps to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. So it's a responsibility that we all have, and I think so we can make the change. On that note, one key take-home message, if I would say, act locally, think globally, and partnerships are the key to success in the 21st century. And that is my team. And if you want to connect with me, that's my email address. I'm on campus. Feel free to drop by so we can have a discussion. And thank you for your valuable time.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Krishnaswamy. If anyone has questions, please put them in the Q&A box. You'll see it between the raise hand icon and the live transcript. We will continue our conversation based on those questions, so please put them in there. But a first question for you is about, this is towards the beginning of your presentation. You were talking about the pillars of your feast lab. And earlier this week in some of our keynotes, we talked about local agri-food systems. What perspective would you bring on how local food systems can be more sustainable?
Okay, so thanks, Holly, for that question. And actually, that's what I said, right? We need to, if we want to really make the change, that's my key take-home message. We need to act locally and think globally, because if we cannot, it needs to start at home. Local food systems needs to be resilient. Then that's how we build. These are the building blocks. If our foundations are not taken care, then we cannot think globally, right? So local food systems play a very integral role in addressing food and nutrition security to end poverty. And how do we make them resilient, sustainable? That is a big challenging question, because it varies. It differs from different communities. It differs in different geographical locations. So for example, let me just share another project that predominantly to Missouri, right? Like in Kansas City, there are food deserts throughout, distributed in the state. But when we go talk to residents living in these food deserts, for example, in Ivanhoe neighborhood in Kansas area, right? What we can hear is there are solutions, like low grassroots level solutions are already there, but having these change makers or having resources allocated to them so that can be sustainable over a period of time. So that needs to be in place. And also policy plays a very important role, because you can have this innovation, you can have this change come through, but if there is no such policy support, then we're not going to make that impact, right? So having them integrated and also listening to the people living in that community and creating solutions with community. co-creating solutions that could bring the change rather than providing a solution, co-creating solutions together and setting up that chain from. So that's how we could build those resilient communities. Local innovations can foster and can bring that change.
I have a question off of what you just said. And this ties into another question that we have on the Q&A, but what you just spoke to was co-creating with people on the ground, really listening to them instead of coming at a problem with a solution. And we have several Deaton Scholars Program teams this semester working on projects based in India or Bangladesh. What would be the first step of advice, or the first thing you would do if you were going into a community that you were not familiar with? How would you approach gathering that information and really learning and listening to the people on the ground?
That's a very good, co-creating, right? I think I have another slide for that. I didn't get to show you, so let me see if I can do that. I have a lot of stories to share. Okay. So this was a community in southern part of India, like Tamil Nadu. And what this particular project was doing is it was trying to, chilies were grown. So I'm going to answer your question with an example, how it was done. Hopefully that can be applied to different contexts and different geographical location. So we're developing this project where we're bringing women from rural communities in India and teaching them skills like, processing tomatoes or all the produce that were going as waste, but how they can develop these fortified or ready to eat foods and can sell them. So that could give them extra income to to improve their livelihood. So this particular project was there. And as students, we get to go talk to them. First, when you're different communities completely vary, are different. First thing is you need to find a stakeholder, a person or a contact person in that community who aligns with the mission, who can, if we are interested in improving food insecurity in that area, there would be a person who might be interested in the same. So getting those contacts, sometimes top-down approach works well in certain communities. Sometimes bottom-up approach works well in certain communities. So understanding the dynamics in the communities is so important before you start, the steps. Like your first initial step is understanding the dynamics within the community, and then finding champions who can support the mission. And through them, you connect. You can talk to the network, because as an outsider, people are not going to open up or share those insights to a researcher like our students who are working in those areas. But having that local contact, and through that contact, connecting the network and reaching the people and listening to them, that is important. Hope that answered your question.
Yes, that was great. So I am going to turn to some of our audience questions. Audience, remember that you can place any questions in the Q&A box. So we have a question about what can students do to get started in food and nutrition innovation? Do you have any recommended courses like yours, or programs or just experiences that you went through that you would recommend to students who maybe are starting with no understanding of kind of where to begin?
Okay. What I would say is, if you're on campus, feel free to come and talk to me. I will be happy to share resources. But there are so many online resources already available. If you can go to FAO website, and there is a separate section on educational content and videos that are related to food and nutrition security. So because food and nutrition security itself is a big umbrella, right? In that, you might want to, you may be interested in policy, or you might be interested in innovation in technology or health. So find what is your passion or what you are interested in. So if you don't know, you're so you're blank, you don't know anything about it, I would highly recommend go watch those videos or go through those links. FAO has tremendous resources. And also World Food Program, WFP, if you go to their resources, like in their toolbar, there'll be resources, and they have videos that are categorized for different countries. So you can go, if your country of interest is, let's say, is like Sri Lanka or for a Kenya. So you can go and watch videos, what is happening in that country. And then you can come up with, like, that will lead to another connection. So I would say start reading contents or watching these videos in these websites. And then courses, like I teach 2 courses. One is the Zero Hunger, the food process engineering, and there are amazing courses throughout campus in CAFNA that students can take. So, and also do watch videos on YouTube. They are freely available on student innovation challenges, Hull's Prize, Thought for Food. So these all challenge competitions, the finalist videos are available online. So you can see how they have come up with solutions. So that will inspire you towards food innovation.
Going off of the different projects and programs that you have referenced throughout your presentation, Summer LaRose, our former Deaton Scholars Program Director, has a question, wanting to know your favorite program or project example that you weren't able to get into with your main talk. And she notes that you have such a breadth of amazing experiences and that it's very helpful to hear from your stories.
Thanks, Summer. Nice to see your question. Like one story that really made me, there's so many stories. Every story is unique by its way, and the experience or the wisdom or the insights that it shares is so valuable. So if I have to pick one, I would say I had an interaction with a healthcare worker in Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya, and it really, like, the person she was the midwife, and she was working in 3 different areas, 3 different communities, because they didn't have enough people to cater to the needs of pregnant women in those communities. And she said her profession was like, what I say, it could be a blessing, it could be a curse sometimes. That's what she said. I'm rephrasing this, is because it'll be great to see a baby delivered. She's bringing a life to this earth, right? But on the same hand, when she sees a mother bleed to death, it shakes someone, right? And it could have been prevented by a simple intervention, or like, if they had, if we know that the mother is suffering from iron deficiency anemia, and we could have given the women with folic supplements or iron supplements or fortified foods enriched, so we could have prevented from that incident from happening. So that was like an incident that always resonates with me whenever I'm doing a project, because it's possible, like a small change we think from a macro level, but when it reaches a person who is living in a remote community, that creates a big impact in their life. So that story made challenge, like, it inspires as well as it challenges you to do more, or to connect how you can develop solutions to the people who don't have voice, right? So thanks, Sama, for that question.
Okay. Let's see. Dr. Deaton has a question about that one of your examples talked about the complex interrelationships among public and private entities to address poverty, and that the combination of effort is needed everywhere. Are there case studies that have illustrated these dynamic interrelationships relevant to the United States and to China as well as India?
Okay. Like, because this is a very complex question. When we talk about public-private partnership, we need to find the common ground, right? And Dr. Deaton has immense experience in this area. So I would like to hear his insights as well. But based on my limited understanding, having a public-private partnership is first having those key leaders who can talk to each other and finding that common mission. Yes, if you want to end poverty in a region, right? Because Uttar Pradesh is a complex structure from social, economic, like from caste, from so many different factors. It is a complex structure. Likewise, different parts of the world, like we have complex structure geographically, socially, economically, culturally. And when we have to weave into these cultures, weave into these complexity to solve a problem like poverty or hunger, finding those champions who can, and those low grassroots level leaders who can communicate and having, it's like a three-legged, it's not public-private partnership, I would say it's like it's a three-legged stool. You need to have public, private, as well as people. That is the grassroots level partners who can contribute to those solutions. So then it creates a stability, because if it's only two legs, doesn't have that stability. But you have a third input who's from outside, who's from inside, who can contribute to the solution and having that dialogue. So that could help, but it varies with different geographical locations and political structures. So I'm not sure if I answered that question, but that is a complex question.
Great. Okay, we have another question, this time from Samin. Different underprivileged areas have multiple grave issues going on at the same time. When we target one such problem, others affect the compliance as well as the experience of the community. Understanding the psychology in such areas, for example, high crime rate or unemployment, is extremely important. How can we do that better?
Oh my God, that is also very interesting and challenging question as well, because this is the, like, understanding the crime rate, the unemployment. Why do we have unemployment in a community? So asking those questions are extremely important. And how can we create those social nets so we could, like, improve a community? Because you cannot solve, like, poverty or underemployment or crime rates. These are all connected, right? We don't live in silos in communities. We live as a community where all these things are interconnected. And when we have such a complex network, one approach is not going to work. So we need to have a holistic approach where the social nets are strong enough to create that resilience. Like as Samin said, if we target one problem, that could lead to another avalanche, like, another avalanche. So, and we might not have even thought about those, outcomes when we were solving one problem. So if we could get some historical data from that community, how does the patterns look like for period of time? What is the social structure? What is the economic growth in that community? Or so if you could get an idea, historical timeline of things, series of things that will give us insights, and also talking to communities. And here another thing that I see is when we talk to communities, we talk to pockets of people who are willing to share their stories, right? But always there are a group of people whose voice is not going to be heard. Maybe they are underrepresented, or they are they are in the hard to reach areas. Because we had this issue, we were trying to do the study in food deserts in Kansas, and we wanted to reach. So most of the people, every time we have interaction, it's the same people who come say the story. We get that perspective, but we are not getting the whole perspectives of people who are not even showing up to these events, right? And maybe those are the people who are really in need of the solutions. So how do we collect, how do we hear to those stories so we could create more holistic solutions to this problem? Finding the hardest to reach people, because the solution shouldn't be on a surface level. It serves a certain group of population, but if it needs to be reaching everyone, then it needs to be that comprehensive. And for that, having someone from the community to share their insights and be willing to go and listen to them is so important.
Looks like we have time for just a few more questions. This one is from Dr. Deaton, saying that one of this semester's DSP teams is focused on government-run school food programs in India. How might these programs be expanded with food that is even greater enriched in nutrients? Are these programs in urban areas as well as rural? Is the need greater in one area or another?
Okay, that's a nice question, and I'm congratulations to the DSP team who are working on that project. I was in India, so I had an opportunity to visit some schools who do it's called the midday meals program. So when students come to school, they get a meal, like meals, which you should see in. I had the opportunity to go to a urban area as well as a rural area. So I'm going to share insights from both. The urban area was like near an IT corridor, and it's a government-run school. So they had the same, for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the food chart was done. It was nutritionally balanced, and the kitchen were beautiful, and everything was good. And children were coming. During COVID, they were not going to schools, but then slowly when the lockdown has been released, students were coming to. And when I had the opportunity to talk to the principal of the school, she said that students from different economic background status come to that school. Some do not need the food, but some do come to school just to have that food because they cannot even afford that food, right? So providing them that food brings them towards education, and they get to stay and complete their education. And and they go to, once they graduate, they go to different, go to university, or their livelihood has changed because of that particular food meals program, right? And in the rural areas, the same menu, predominantly Monday, the whole menu is going to be the same. But what we see is the supply chain, when the ration shop, that is the public distribution systems that are in place to provide rice, oil, and all the supplies required to cook in the school kitchen. So during COVID, there was some disruption. So they didn't get those resources to feed those people. So that could be a challenge, because in an urban area where you have well-connected networks of roads and resources availability is nearer, schools get those resources. But in rural areas where sometimes it's in remote regions, getting those raw material itself is a big challenge. So that is a challenge, and that if the teams can come up with some solution, that'll be wonderful. And if teams wants to discuss I'll be happy to talk to them as well.
Okay, we have one final question here. And this one is, how have you navigated being a female in male-dominated spaces, particularly in academia?
Okay, that is it is to be fair and it is challenging. It has been challenging, like but you find sometimes amazing mentors, like colleagues who can like support you, and your conviction also. While this is a male dominated area, and being a woman and like women of color or so on, it sometimes can be challenging. But if you have a clear vision, hey, this is a short period, we all come to this planet with a short period of time, right? And if we could contribute something that could improve a life of one person, or like that itself is, I think it's a blessing. And when you're given that opportunity, it comes with a responsibility that someone did that. If I'm here, it's because of someone who cleared a road so I could come here. So now it's my duty to clear the road so few more people can come here. So that gives motivation and courage to move forward. And meeting all these awesome women, like, I'm here, but there are so many women. I happen to go to an Anganwadi. Anganwadi is like a small, like healthcare workers, so they go field work and they talk to people. So seeing them passion, like, when what you're doing is impacting someone in a poor community, and that gives you motivation, and that's what's keep me going, and students, obviously. So I hope I answered this question.
Yeah, that was great. With that, I'll let you, if you have any closing remarks or anything that you want to leave with the audience today.
I would say thank you for your time. It was wonderful interacting and amazing questions. And I truly believe if there are students in this group, you have all the power in your hands to make the change happen, because every single person can contribute to this challenge. And because we all eat. So food connects us all. And if you want to break the cycle of poverty, you need to start somewhere, and food could be a common, as Anne always says, food is love, food is a common ingredient. That common ingredient can break cycles of poverty, as well as build connections towards a more sustainable world. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Krishnaswamy. I'm going to add Dr. Deaton back as a panelist in case he wants to add anything. This is also our closing session of the conference this week. So this is the end of our 3 days together. And if anyone has comments, thoughts, questions still, you're welcome to put that in the chat. Hold on, this is not working for me. Dr. Deaton, can you hear us? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm not showing up. Well, what a wonderful presentation, Kiruba. Am I on, Hadi? Can you see me? Okay, great. That was just a wonderful presentation and should inspire any of us. I'm inspired to go back for a postdoc in your field, so I can get a lot more from the science that you have delineated. And I love your closing comments about food is the common ingredient. Food is love, and it's making all the difference in the world in all of our lives. And you have made such a contribution in your presentation. So this has been a wonderful conference, 3 days of emphasizing and really examining the question of whether or not no poverty is within reach. No poverty, zero hunger. We think of them very, very commonly. And we've explored many dimensions of that question. And frankly, I've been a little surprised at how positively so many people very knowledgeable, in the know, such as yourself and others involved in key policy areas, have so emphatically answered the question that yes, indeed, even yet it is within reach by 2030. If we have the will, if we marshal the organizational structure and make the commitment to engage science and policy and the wealth that we have to address those differences, and hopefully diminish some of the conflict that we see plaguing us in so many ways. So I think you culminated a lot of the thinking from across many areas, and it's just been a real inspiration for us. So again, thank you. Thanks to everyone who participated this week. As Holly indicated, I want to give Holly a very special thanks for all she's done all week. So please join me in thanking her for a fabulous organizational effort and making this accessible to so many people. And it will continue to be accessible by recording, by video, and we will see that you get the word on that. I am open to any questions if anyone has them, Holly. I think it's been a wonderful experience. And we'll have opportunities later in the week to meet with the DSP students, with high school students, Missouri Youth Initiative, and to others, and with others. So I feel very good about the week. Holly, thank you. And anything you would like to add or contribute at this point?
Just thank you everyone for joining us this week virtually. The only thing that I'll add is for those of you who are at the University of Missouri or close distance, driving distance to Columbia, Missouri, our conference does continue in person on Friday of this week, starting at 8:30 to 9:30 with a breakfast networking session, and then some remarks from Dr. Brady Deaton, followed by a short panel from Dr. Ann Deaton, wherever Ann is, behind Brady somewhere. We created this website during COVID called The Common Ingredient. Ann and her friends did, and they will be discussing the website, how you can get involved, how you can submit recipes. And I will put the link in the chat for those of you who are not in Columbia. The website's accessible to all. And then we have Roger Thoreau, who was a keynote speaker at last year's conference, for those of you who have now been with us for 2 years. And Roger is speaking in Leadership Auditorium at 12:15. You can find all of this information on the Deaton Institute website, as well as all of our social media. And there will be plenty of reminders sent to you all day tomorrow and on Friday in anticipation of each session. But for those of you who are in Missouri, we would love to have you join us for all of those important events on Friday.
Thank you, Holly. Ann got called away for just a moment, but that's very comfortable to be here with you and with Kiruba. We've counseled on so many occasions, and I have taken profuse notes all week, and I'll spend the next several months going back over them and thinking about some of the many wonderful ideas that you've contributed, and really trying to help shape all of us, all of our minds, in directions that are positive, creative, and fulfilling that responsibility that Dr. Krishnaswamy talked about. We all are blessed to have the opportunity to do the work that we're doing. We do it with a passion. You've seen that passion reflected every day with every speaker, every panelist that we've had, and you've demonstrated that in the questions that you have asked as well. So again, thanks to everyone, and it's just been a highlight to be here with you.
Thank you for this opportunity, and it was wonderful having this discussion and the dialogue. And to all the participants, thank you for your wonderful questions.
And with that, Within Reach No Poverty has come to an official close. So be on the lookout for emails with our presentations from this week, especially some of our speakers that were not able to make it. They have sent over their slide presentations to share, and the videos will be made available by the end of this week for our students and faculty that maybe were not able to attend. So thank you again all for your time, and hope to see some of you in person on Friday.
Thanks so much.